So acupuncture is an ancient medical system. It's very comprehensive, like Western medicine. Can take care of all phases of life, and it involves a diagnosis. First there's an interview with the patient, and then from that interview and the questions and the observations that are made by the practitioner, the acupuncturist, through the pulse and looking at the tongue, then a diagnosis is made. And from the diagnosis, then the points are selected, acupuncture points. And the points are prepared and needled and are left in for about 15 or 20 minutes. And depending on what is being treated, it may be resolved that very day, if it's something that had just come on quickly, or if it's something that had taken a number of years to get started, then it will take a number of treatments for that. Chinese use the word qi to describe what is being manipulated and either tonified or dispersed when you needle. And qi is like the wind or steam. It's something that can be felt but not held in your hand. And so qi is a hard thing to understand as Westerners, but qi is how the Chinese would explain the efficacy of the acupuncture. Sickness to us in Chinese medicine is an imbalance in the body, that the qi has become stuck somewhere along its pathway. There's one continuous long pathway that's broken up into 14 meridians in the body, and somewhere along that way the qi has become stuck. It's would be akin to the federal highway system in the United States, that if a big accident happened in Los Angeles, eventually, when those bridges collapsed in the earthquake, eventually the repercussions would be felt further and further away from that original stagnation or blockage in the body. In China, it goes back 5,000 to 7,000 years that it can be shown that they were working with acupuncture points. And then about 2,000 years ago, the Yellow Emperor's Classic was written. And soon after that, there were also other books that were written that discussed more and more about the meridians and the channels of the body, and that the acupuncture points were linked not only by their symptoms, but also by a current of energy that flows throughout the entire body. And that was at the same time that the Chinese were building their canals. And so the technology in China and the technology of the medicine, they moved together. When they came over to work with the railroads, there would be these small villages that the Chinese would bring with them along as they built further and further along the route of the railroad. And at those places, they would have all of their services, their cooks, the laundry, and also their doctors. And so the Chinese medicine was being practiced in the United States along with the development of our railroads in the United States. And then when there were Chinatowns and larger Chinese communities, then there were doctors that had an office that the Chinese could go to get treatments as they would in China. But it wasn't until the 1970s, when Nixon went over to open up China, that the broader American people knew about Chinese medicine and acupuncture. When Nixon and his whole press corps were over there, one of them fell ill and was brought to the Chinese hospital, and they witnessed a surgical procedure where acupuncture was used for the anesthesia in the operation. And that was very impressive to them, because it was clear that the anesthesia was working. And so it immediately went from something that was very obscure and only found in a small population in the United States to the front cover of the New York Times in the 70s. The World Health Organization agrees with Chinese medicine that it treats a very broad range of conditions and diseases. So I think people see it as a much smaller thing, and actually it's a much bigger thing. And I have to remind my patients that when they get cold, they call in, they say, oh, I can't come in, I have a cold. I go, well, Chinese medicine is very useful for treating your cold or flu. So just helping people to see how broad a scope it covers. So women will come in if they have had a hard time becoming pregnant, people that are having a hard time sleeping, people that are a hard time managing their stress, anxiety, depression, all of those things. That's more and more common. People come in for that. And I think through the support groups for cancer treatment, a lot of people know that acupuncture can help mediate the side effects of chemotherapy and radiation, the nausea and the fatigue, speed their recovery. I think the biggest fear is of needles, because people immediately associate needles with the hypodermic needle that they would have gotten at the doctor's office to draw blood or to have a shot injected. But acupuncture needle is far thinner than that needle. It doesn't need to move fluid in or out of the body. It's just about the thickness of a human hair. So people they hear needle and their picture immediately becomes this hypodermic needle, and the reality is that it's a much, much smaller needle, and its purpose is entirely different. Because acupuncture is not adding anything really to the body. It's taking the person's their own vital health that they have and helping to improve upon that, helping to take where there's too much attention in the body to a place where there's not enough attention in the body, and in that way restoring the flow of qi and life force in the body, bringing back health.